expression of disagreement by the minority side of the committee. But I remained seated for a while, and I was observing proceedings to see how the chairman of the committee was going to manage the situation. So I was seated there for a long time. I never got up. I never uttered a word. I just sat there and I was watching. And the minority members rose up and will not sit, will not leave the room, and publicly were expressing their disagreement with the chairman to continue with the vetting exercise. So I remained seated, and after a while, when I noticed that it was difficult for the chairman to bring order to the room, I decided to get up from where I was seated and start talking to both sides to understand what really was the problem. Because I'm not a member of the committee. I don't know what discussions took place. I just heard both sides exchanging words and shouting at each other. I heard words like ambush. I heard words like we didn't agree on this. And I heard words like we must vet them. And I heard words like you cannot stop us. And so I knew that there was some disagreement somewhere, but what it was, I didn't know. So I tried to talk to them to try and hear what the issue was. So I walked to all the sides trying to understand what is the problem. On the minority side, they said that they had had some discussions, and the understanding was that they were supposed to vet 3 nominees, and then later on there was a plea to add a 4th nominee, and they agreed. After that, there was a plea to add a 5th nominee, and that was the nominee for the Minister of Transport. And then there was resistance that, according to them, Honorable Nitu tried to convince the side to accede to the plea by the majority side to add the nominee for the Ministry of Transport. And so ultimately they agreed. And that was the nomination that I came and met. But towards the end, they have seen that the majority side is parading 2 additional nominees. And those were Akando and then Honorable Ablakwa. And that they were not going to entertain the nomination of these 2 other, the vetting of these 2 other nominees. And I heard their side. So I tried to speak to the chairman and then the majority side. They also indicated that there was no agreement to vet only 3 people, and that because of the decision to hear Vamevo, they had pushed all those who were supposed to be nominated that day to the Thursday. So they were hoping to clear both the nominees for Wednesday and Thursday on Thursday. So that was what they were seeking to achieve, which is just to complete the task that was before them. And there was strong disagreement. So I tried to convince the majority side that how about if they agree to vet Akando so that you push Ablakwa to Friday morning. Is that acceptable? They said no, they must vet the 2 of them that day. Then I went to the minority side and tried to plead with them. Is it okay for you to vet Akando since he's already seated, and then we can defer Ablakwa to Friday morning? And they also said no, they will not vet Akando. Some were okay, some said we don't have a problem with Akando, but we have a problem vetting Ablakwa tonight. So I decided to engage the minority leader, and I asked him to come out of the committee room with me so that we can talk. So outside, he gave a very strong objection and said his side will not agree and that they were tired and they agreed on 3 and they had been generous enough to do 5 and we want to push them to do 7. It was too much and it was already late. It was about 8 p.m. and they were tired. They would not continue the work. So when I noticed that he could not come along with me to at least agree to vet Akando, I came back trying to talk to some people on his side to prevail on him, and the situation had degenerated and then tried to talk to them and come back into the meeting room, and the audience were mostly behind the nominee, were also participating in, as you could see in the videos, shouting and, shaming members of the minority side. And then also the corridors were full. So even within the corridor, it was difficult to move around freely. So that was the situation. So I decided to call 1 or 2 people to consult and take a decision on what to do. And ultimately, I decided that it would be better to end the proceedings, by which time they had broken one table. They had pulled out the plugs of the microphones, and in 1 or 2 instances, they had actually smashed the microphones. And so I thought the best thing to do was to bring proceedings to an end and get the chairman to postpone it to the following day. And so I announced that, and they all accepted and dispersed. Those were what I saw and what I did on that day.
Thank you very much, Honorable Leader. Colleagues, this is the witness account. Any question from any of our members that we can discharge him to go?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Majority Leader, if you could just confirm, just for the records, that the video that we just watched is an accurate depiction of what you remember on the day.
Depending on where you were seated that evening, you will see different things. I was seated exactly where Honorable Bidiziding is seated. So I could only see directly opposite me a lot of what was happening on this side until I got up. I was seated for a very long time, to tell you the truth. I was just seated calmly throughout. And so I saw a bit of what was directly opposite me. On this side, I only saw Akando sitting here, and then he had a few people behind him. I think that the video depicts an aspect of what happened, depending on where the camera was positioned. As you can see them, they were positioned at different locations. Some were to the left, others to the right, and so those who were to the right were capturing. But when it got heated, some took their cameras and tried to capture it from a position that they thought could tell the story better. So and others used their mobile phones, and they came and they were all over the place trying to capture different angles. So this, I believe, reflects one of the angles, but there were different other angles.
Thank you very much, Honorable Leader. We have a lot of videos from different angles from different people, but this is just to identify that you were there on that day. And so thank you very much.
I was there.
Okay. Any more?
Okay. At what time was it?
I believe that was between 7 and 8
p.m.
Between 7 and 8 p.m., yeah. I think that's when the confusion started and dragged on for a while.
Thank you very much. Leader, Majority Leader, I'd just like to find out whether there was a prior agreement to vet Honorable Akujato and Honorable Akando for the day, in addition to the ones that were undertaken. Whether leadership of the committee actually had that agreement. Thank you.
The original schedule actually provided for Ablakwa to be vetted on Thursday. Indeed, he had approached me personally to see if it could be vetted earlier, because the president had started traveling, and I think was even traveling to one of the Eastern or Southern African countries. And the suggestion was that the president was traveling and he didn't have the support of his Minister for Foreign Affairs. So it was important to see if we could have Ablakwa taken so that he could be sworn in and he could start working around the president's travels. So he approached me to see if he could be shifted to Wednesday or even Tuesday. And it was difficult because others had been scheduled earlier. So to shift him, you needed to move somebody out. I, on a number of occasions, tried to get the chairman to shift him forward. It didn't happen. So I negotiated that they should vet him on Wednesday. And it turned out that on Wednesday there was a decision to invite Vamevo and not to vet any nominee. So it then became the position that the original date of Thursday that he was scheduled was the day that he would be vetted. So the week before, he had already been scheduled to be vetted on Thursday. So Thursday was his appropriate vetting day.
Yeah, Leader, I want to find out if I heard you right. You said originally they had agreed on vetting 3, but by the intervention of Honorable Nitu, the Minister for Transport, the nominee for transport, they agreed to vet that minister on that Thursday. I don't know whether I heard you right.
I said I spoke to both sides, and each side had a different account. The minority side said that their understanding was that they were to vet 3 nominees. But then when they came after the 3 nominees, their colleagues convinced them and they added 1 nominee. And after that, their colleagues requested for an additional nominee, and that was a nominee for Minister of Transport. They resisted that, but Nitul, who was part of them, pleaded on behalf of the nominee for transport. So they added him and vetted 5 of them. That is the account given by the minority members that I spoke to that day.
Colleagues, we'll take the last one, then we can ask the leader to go.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Leader, would you want to confirm that you approached both leadership, the minority and then the majority, and yet they failed to arrive at a compromise? You approached them both, tried to mediate, and yet they failed to arrive at a compromise. Thank you.
Yeah, I spoke to both sides. I spoke to them. I tried to convince them, but each side was adamant, insisted that somebody like Ablakwa had been slated to be vetted that date. He had come with his family and his chiefs. I think the pressure was coming from the fact that the nominees on the record were slated for that day, and the nominees had come here with their families and their chiefs, and they were all out there. So members of the majority side were having a difficulty. What do we do with these families? What do we do with these chiefs that we have made to travel all, this far to come, and then we'll tell them it's 8 p.m. They've sat here since morning, and you want us to tell them to go back. And that was the difficulty, that the nominees were here with their families, with their chiefs, and to ask the nominees to go back with their families and come back the following day was going to be a major inconvenience. That was really what was pushing. It wasn't just because they had the numbers and they could railroad their way through. It was just, what do we do? I had confronted a similar situation last week where nominees had come with even the president of the Greater Accra Regional House of Chiefs, the president of the Bono Regional House of Chiefs, with his whole, Regional House of Chiefs. They were here, 10, 15 chiefs. Greater Accra he sat here the whole day. And then we finished approving, taking the report on those whose reports had been laid in the house. We finished around 8. We came here and there were 3 or 4 sets of nominees with their chiefs. And again, the minority side said it was late, they were tired, and they couldn't start processing them. And the majority said they would not agree. Those chiefs had been sitting here the whole day, and they couldn't tell them to go back home. So on that day, I had to take responsibility. And I invited the nominees themselves into a room outside here and personally pleaded with them. They begged and begged. I said, no, it is late. It is 8 p.m. And you know that the average number of hours we spend on each nominee is 3 hours. So just do the calculation. If we take you'll be here till 11. Then the next chief and next nominee and his chiefs will sit and also start at 11 and do 3 hours. That will be 2 a.m. And then the next person, I said, why would you treat these old men like that? So the nominees then calmed down. I remember one nominee said the day before she had come to see us, and we agreed and confirmed and assured her that she'll be vetted. And this dress that she had prepared for this vetting, she had worn it and come, and then I'm saying she should go home and change her dress and come back. And then we joked about it, but then she agreed and said, but she didn't know what to do about her chiefs. So I said, leave that to me. So I asked for the president of the Greater Accra House of Chiefs to come to the meeting, and he came with his elders. And I explained to him the situation we found ourselves. I said, Nana, this is the situation. It is 8 o'clock. By the time we start, it will be 9 o'clock. And the average is 3 hours. Nana, do you want to sit here till 12 midnight? Then he said, no. And I said, so what can you do for us? He said, well, I can agree to do it tomorrow. And so we resolved it. It took a lot of effort to persuade the chiefs to go back and then return the following day. The following day, that nominee was wearing an even more pretty dress. So I said, we give you an opportunity to wear an even more pretty dress.
Leader, I hope if we give you the whole day, you narrate everything to us. So please.
So the real challenge of the majority